Hey, I'm Reverend Jocelyn, a minister of healing, speaker, and women's ministry coach. I grew my ministry from a simple blog to a national Christian trauma healing movement. And now I help women to answer their call to build purpose driven ministries and businesses. Welcome to Reverend Jocelyn Talks, where healing meets purpose. Hello, my sisters in ministry out there. It's Reverend Jocelyn, and welcome to another episode of Reverend Jocelyn Talks, where I have the opportunity to connect with amazing women of God who have said yes to the calling, who's making impact for the kingdom. And if you're a first timer listening, welcome, sis. I'm so glad that you are here. And I always love to bless first timers with a gift. So if you haven't already, be sure to visit my website at sisterstartyourministry.com to download a free ministry launch starter kit designed to help you to start that ministry, to build the kingdom business that God has put on your heart. It shows you how to organize your ministry, how to get your message out there, get that revenue going, and so much more. So again, visit sisterstartyourministry.com to download your free ministry launch starter kit today. Now, today I have the opportunity to connect with someone who has coached me through some stuff. And I'm talking about coaching me in times in which I was trying to get my message out on stage and I was scared to share certain parts of this message. And she walked me through it in such a way where when I speak, people still ask me to speak and use that message that she helped me to design as a speaker coach. We are bringing to the show a dynamic woman of God, Star Bobatoon Esquire. She is a speaker, communication coach, and founder of Own Your Stage training and coaching program. Now, a former employment attorney and professional actress, Star helps accomplished women turn their expertise to visibility, influence, and revenue. Now, there's a lot more to her bio that I can read right now, but I want you to hear from the woman herself. But this is someone who I admire greatly. I'm glad to call friend, and I wanted to make sure that you were introduced to her. So, Coach Star, thank you for accepting my invitation today.
Hey there, Reverend Jocelyn. Thank you for having me here. Always glad to support you in whatever you do.
Yes. Well, you have. You've been a big supporter for me in my speaker journey. And when I saw what God was doing through you to help other people to own the stage, I was like, my audience is going to absolutely love this. And we're gonna dive into what you're doing now to help people to get their message out there. But before we do, one of the first questions I always love to ask women on the show is just about their relationship with God, in terms of how did you become a believer?
So that is very interesting because I have always considered myself a believer. I've always considered myself God friendly. You know, I believe in God. I was raised Muslim. I broke away from that because I wasn't in alignment with some of the messaging. But then I did a little here, did a little there, different things, but I've always believed in God. So I've always been God friendly. It got to a point a couple of years ago, my life was not going in the direction that I wanted to go, or it seemed like it was okay, but something wasn't right. You know that thing where nothing's wrong, but something's not right. So I was there and I take a look around my community and I noticed that everyone that I love and respect has a personal relationship with God. So I think to myself, maybe I should try it. Maybe I should, not should, I would like to see what that's like to have that personal relationship with God. And all of the people who were God fearing, they talked about this book all the time. And so I'm like, if I'm going to have a relationship with God, I'm going to start with the book that everyone's talking about. And so I read the Bible, like took me a year and a half, but I read the Bible. And in that journey is where my relationship with God developed. Interestingly, 10 years prior, I wanted to have a relationship with God. Nope. That's not what it was. I wanted to know God. I was going through a difficult time and I just felt led to, I wanted to find God. Yes. And so I was new to the Virginia area. And so I went to probably a dozen churches trying to find God. And I didn't find God in the church. I don't know what I was looking for, but I didn't find what I needed. And so I just left it alone. But this time, the journey was through the Bible. And in reading the Bible, and I have an app that helps me out. And then, all those friends I told you that were kingdom related, they were there for questions. Because I am an attorney, I have questions.
You have questions,
I
yes.
have questions. I need evidence. This is just how I am. And so I got to ask them all the questions and they would answer me. And mostly they would say, look at this verse, look at this chapter, look at this scripture. And that developed my relationship with God, my current relationship with God.
That's beautiful. I love that. I love that. Ask all the questions as you're exploring and wanting to go deeper. And in what you do, Coach Star, I know one thing's for sure. God did not make a mistake when you got your name because you are someone who is a star. You shine light everywhere you go. You fill a room. And one thing that you fill the room well in is your stage presence. And I would love to just kind of know a little bit about your background, or at least I know about this, but I want my audience to know about your background in honing your craft as a dynamic speaker.
Yes. Well, I have been on stages my entire life, right? I was a child actress. So I did television, I did movies, I did commercials, I did all of that stuff. And I absolutely loved it. I loved the attention. But what I really loved was making an impact in that audience. And especially having people drawn into the story the way they would. I loved it. But at the height of my career, there was a lot of tension, hostility in my inner circle. And I'm a child. I don't know what's going on in other people's lives because the world revolves around me. So if there's a problem, it must be me. And I came to the conclusion that my being in the spotlight was the problem. So I took myself out of the spotlight. I gave up acting. I walked away from my gift. I walked away from the thing that I love. In essence, I muted my voice and I dimmed my light, trying to make other people comfortable. And I wonder if any of the listeners, any of the people watching can relate to that. You know how it is. You show up just a little bit differently. You don't say exactly what you mean. You hide your accomplishments because you don't know you know that it's not a safe audience. That's what I did. But I went on and had a good life. Anyway, I got married, had kids. Um, I became an attorney. I'm living a life. I mean, can we check the boxes here? We could check the boxes. We check the boxes. Everything is beautiful. This is another one of those times where something's not right. Nothing's wrong, but something's not right. But I wasn't willing to do anything about it. And then, Reverend Jocelyn, my life fell apart. Marriage ended. Job went away. My dad died. It was like all of the anchors that I had in my world were gone. And I was left untethered, scrambling to find solid ground. And a friend of mine invited me to a motivational seminar. You know the type where they bring all these popular speakers and they come and they speak to you and pour into you. I was like, no, thank you. No, I don't want that. Because I was having a pity party. You know how it is when we have a pity party. Just want to go ahead and be the star of the party. But I went to this thing and I'm sitting in the audience, right? And I'm watching all these amazing speakers go across the stage. And that's when I realized, or I remembered, that I used to be on the stage and how much I loved being on the stage. And these speakers, they weren't just, they were obviously in their passion. using their gifts. But what I really appreciated was the impact they were having in the audience. And that's what I remember about being on the stage, the impact that I had with an audience. And that's when I decided to come back to the stage as a speaker and a trainer. I ended up training with world-renowned motivational speaker Les Brown. I ran his speaker training program for a while. I was vice president of yet another training program, and I was in a training organization where I became the number one speaker and trainer in that organization in sales and performance. And of course, along the way, people are asking, hey, I'd like to do what you do. I'd like to be on a stage. And that is how I got to where I am now.
That's amazing. I love that, Coach Star, and in seeing the trajectory in your growth for some women, they're like, "Oh, wow, like, that's great for her, but I don't even know how to get started." And I love how you were vulnerable enough to talk about how it was a point in your journey where you were hiding. You were hiding that light. You, had some limiting beliefs, I might call it, around that. And for some sisters right now, they know they have a message, but they're dealing with fear, doubt, and they don't know where to begin. So for that sister who desires to speak but has that roadblock, let's talk about some things that can help them to just even make that initial step.
The person you're describing is my audience, that is my client. And I call her the invisible expert, right? She is brilliant at what she does. She's not an expert in everything, but she knows what she knows. And she's got the experience, she's got the expertise, she's got the degree. She is an expert in her own right, but nobody knows she exists. And why? Part of that is because she doesn't have the tools. How do I start my story? How do I tell it? Where do I go? Part of it is not having the right tools. And I supply those tools, but I will tell you, after 18 years of working with people, mostly women, what I find is the biggest thing holding them back is not the skills or the know-how. The biggest thing holding them back is the belief. See, I believe there are three stories that run our lives, right? There is the cover story. That's the one we put on Facebook, the one that sees we are doing fabulous, the business is growing, the career is moving, and the kids are delicious. That Facebook, right? But then there's the real story. The real story, you are tired, frustrated, business sucks, and the kids have lost their minds. That that's but we don't share that.
We don't talk about that story. We don't.
We don't share that one. But then there's another story, and this is the most insidious story, and is what I call the backstory, right? This is the story that we learned in crisis as a child. And that is the same story that runs our lives every single day. For me, my backstory was, if you are successful, you will not be loved. And so throughout my career, in all the time that I was hiding, and even when I came back to the stage as a speaker and a trainer, there's parts of me that were still hiding because of that fear, because of the story that I made up when I was a child that was still running my life. Most people that I work with have that story. So I find myself, and you and I experienced it also when I was coaching with you. I find that a lot of the people that I work with, I can give you the techniques, I can help you with the story, but I also have to help you with that backstory, because I could give you all the tools, techniques, and strategies in the world. But if that story says it's not safe, then you're going to remain invisible. So we have to work on both. So the first thing you have to realize is that you're going to have to work on both. You're going to have to work on both. And there are lots of ways to do that. Therapy, coaching, and I have done my share. Can I say I have done my share of both?
Amen.
Um, and then we've added God to the mix also. Um, and all of that has helped me, and it becomes part of my conversation. So that is the first thing. is to just to understand that. And then, of course, just every coach needs a coach. Everyone needs a coach. You can be out here and think, well, I can do this on my own. And maybe you can, but it is so much easier to work with someone who's already made like the 10 mistakes that you're about to make and can say, hey, you want to avoid mistake number 7, 9, and 11. It's nice to have someone who can help you along doing that. But, the one thing that I will say is your story can be someone else's remedy, someone else's antidote. Um, Antidote, thank you. For whatever that you're going through, your story can help someone else. And I believe we have an obligation to share what we have, our expertise, to help others, because God didn't give it to us for us. God gives it to us so that we may share it, and share his message through it. That's what we're supposed to do. The caveat is you have to know how to tell that story in a way that it is uplifting and not trauma dumping. Like,
Let me jump in here
go
because
ahead.
that is a whole conversation. I want to kind of have them on a cliffhanger for our commercial break. And when we get back, she's going to break down the importance of avoiding trauma dumping when it comes to your talks and your speaking engagement. So we'll be right back after this commercial break.
You feel called to ministry, but the path forward feels unclear. Fear, doubt, and uncertainty can make the calling feel overwhelming, especially when trying to build something meaningful alone. Written from real ministry experience, this book was created to help women start, grow, and sustain a transformative ministry beyond the walls of the church. Inside are practical strategies for overcoming fear, gaining clarity, building services and teams, generating revenue, and creating a 90-day action plan for growth. More than inspiration, this book is a roadmap for turning a calling into something real and impactful. Sisters, Start Your Ministry, a guide to start, grow, and sustain a transformative ministry. Available on Amazon.
Welcome back, sisters. From our commercial break, I'm with the lovely Star Bobatoon, and we are talking here about owning your stage. And right before the commercial break, she was talking about the importance of making sure that when you have a speaking engagement, you might have a powerful story of overcoming trauma, overcoming drama, but you don't want to leave people in the tubes when they hear your story. So, Coach Star, like for those who haven't even heard of the term trauma dumping before, let's talk about this and how we want to make sure we avoid it at all cost.
Absolutely. I had a client, her name was Angel. Angel had been through some trauma as a child. And when she was in certain audiences, people would want her to come and share her testimony. And she would do it because she wanted to be helpful. And she would get up and she would share the trauma that she went through in graphic detail. And by the end of it, she always fell apart. She was always a complete mess. People had to come and hug on her and help her out. And she said it took her 3 days to get over it. And that's what the story did to her. We don't even know what that story did to other people who had not maybe processed their own trauma. How many people were triggered and then left to go on about their day? And that's what she was doing. And she knew that there had to be a better way. Yeah, there's a better way. So we worked on her story, on how much of the trauma to share and how to share that trauma. And the realization that the trauma is not the story. The story is not the story is not what happened to you. The story is what you did to overcome what happened to you. That's the story. And when we shifted her story, where the trauma part was really very small at the beginning. We didn't go too deep. We learned you don't go deeper than you can take people back. We don't go too deep, but the real beauty of the story is how she learned forgiveness. That is the point of the story, because she went on to have a great life. And now when she tells the story, she feels empowered when she walks off the stage, and she has left that audience in good hands. She's left them in a good space where they too are empowered and encouraged and motivated. This is the importance. This is how you tell a story that actually helps someone else, that does not trauma dump.
Mm, that's good. Sisters, please take that with you, because I think sometimes we are encouraged to share our testimony, and there's power in that. We understand that. But one thing that I want to highlight that Coach Star was talking about, that lovely sister Angel, it sounds like she was still almost processing her trauma in front of others. And one thing that I teach is like, that's something that we don't want to be processing our trauma on stage. That's something we do in counseling, right? But how Coach Star worked with people, she helped her to stand on her story and not relive her story. And that's pretty great.
That's exactly it, Reverend Jocelyn, to stand on it and not to live in it and relive it every single time.
Mhm.
So I wanted to share something else with the audience. So very recently, I was working in an organization, vice president of training in that organization, and it was a nice, safe place to be. And I knew that I was doing good work. I knew it. I was helping people. I'm encouraging people, but I felt like I had missed my own flight, my flight to my destination, right? Or to my destiny. I felt that I had missed my flight because I asked God for a plan. A friend of mine called me up and gave me a plan. And I said, no, I won't take the plan. I'm going to come work for you. That's what I said, because that was safer. And I stayed there for a few years, and I could feel that it was time to go. I could feel, but I'm like, no, I'm not leaving. It's comfortable here. It's good here, and I'm doing good work. But I think a lot of times we are in positions where we are doing good, and we feel we should stay where we are doing good, yet God is calling us to do something else. And I heard God calling me to do something else. It was like, passenger Star Bobatoon, you please report to gate 7 for your destiny. And I said, no, thank you. I'm not going. And, you know, God likes to whisper at first, and then he gets a little loud, and then he knocks you upside the head. And it just got to a point where I knew I had to go, where I just had to go. It was that last client that I worked with, right? She wanted to excel. She wanted to grab onto her dreams and to fly with them. And I encouraged her. She was afraid. She was intimidated. She was scared and crying. And Coach Star came to the rescue, and I encouraged her and told her that God had great things for her and that she needed to follow that. And as she took off, it hit me that I was being a hypocrite. And I could not encourage one more person to take flight on their dreams when I wasn't taking flight on my own. And that's when I made my decision to leave the comfort of that position and to step back into my own business. Now, I've been coaching and mentoring and teaching this entire time, but I was doing it sort of under a different label. And so I was called to do it under my own label. And even when I left, I didn't feel ready. I didn't have all my ducks lined up. As a matter of fact, one of my friends said, make sure you got your ducks lined up. Ducks not lined up, ducks scattered about. um, but this was during my new relationship with God. And though part of me was scared, I didn't know what I was doing next. I didn't know how it would work out, but I had faith like I had never had faith before because I had a relationship that I never had before. And I leaned on that relationship. Did my first event in that year, and it was phenomenal. It was so good. It was more than I imagined it to be. What is that? Exceedingly abundantly above
More.
and beyond.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Whatever I could think or imagine, that is what it was. And that, I guess, solidified my belief that I'm on the right track and that I am doing God's will.
Amen. I am glad you took that leap because you're helping so many people, Coach Star. And for that woman who's out there who she knows deep down inside, she wants to own the stage, but she doesn't quite know where to begin. And she's honestly a little all over the place too with her message. Like, a lot of us are so fabulous, we get overwhelmed by our fabulousness and we don't necessarily have a focus. For her out there, like, just give her some tips to kind of get started.
The tips to get started, I would say, is other than get in contact with me and let's have just a
Of
one-on-one
course.
conversation.
Yes,
Other
for
than that,
sure.
my tip would be, so okay, I'm going to give you a tip on your story, right? Easy peasy thing. I always help people with their story. Beginning, middle, end. 3 parts of a story. Simple, easy peasy. But you've heard people who don't do that. They'll give you the beginning and the middle, and you don't know what happens. Or they'll start in the middle, then they got to backtrack. So easy way to do a story is beginning, middle, end. The other thing you want to think about before you get on any stage, before you start sharing your message, is to think about what that message is. I work with people all the time, speakers who've been speaking for years, and I say, what is your message? And 5 minutes later, they're still explaining it. If you're still explaining it 5 minutes later, you don't know what that message is. And if you don't know what your message is, your audience doesn't know what your message is. And so I have a framework that I call the MAP: your message, your audience, your purpose. You want to figure that out first, because that is what's going to drive your presentation, right? It's like the map helps you get to your destination. It helps the audience get to your destination as well. So put together your story. Make sure you have your map ahead of time. And there are so many places, association, a networking event where you can share your story, share your message, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Look for those opportunities. You can do a Google search, you can do a Chat GPT search for those type of organizations so that you have the opportunity to share. The best way to get better is to practice. Les Brown used to say all the time, you need time in front of eyeballs. And I agree with that. So you organize your map, you organize your story, and find places to speak and start speaking. You know what? Speakers speak. So how do I become a speaker? Start speaking.
That's it. Just get out there. You got to get the reps in. There's no way around it. But before you get the reps in, if you could talk to Coach Star, it can accelerate how long it takes for you to be able to position that story in such a powerful way. Now, Coach Star, I know that some of the listeners right now, they're like, man, I need to get in touch with you. So, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
I believe the best way is to jump on my calendar. Jump on my calendar, which is connectwithstar.com. Connectwithstar.com. And you'll see my next webinar that's coming up, which is called The Invisible Expert. Why your brilliance is not bringing you the revenue or the respect that you deserve. You'll see when the next one is coming up. You'll have all of my social there and you'll be able to get on my calendar. Let's have a conversation. Let's see where you are now, what you want to accomplish, and what plan we can put together to get you there.
That's awesome, Coach Star. Please be sure to reach out, check out her calendar and all the upcoming events. And thank you for being here and spending some time today with my audience. I really appreciate you, Coach.
Sister, I will do anything for you. I am glad to be here and hopeful, in my conversations and my new relationship with God. What I pray all the time is that I will do the work that He has called me to do, serve the people He has called me to serve in a way that pleases Him. And by being here, I believe I am on that path.
You absolutely are, Coach Star. Thank you. Thank you for spending time with
Oh,
us today.
sister, anytime, anytime. All right, Reverend Jocelyn.
Thank you. And thank you all for hanging out with us. Wasn't she amazing? I told you she was fabulous. And if you enjoyed today's episode, I want you to do a couple things. First of all, like this episode and make a comment on what you took away from our time together. And go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already so you never miss an episode. In addition to that, if you know that you have a powerful story and you want to speak on stages, but you have a story related to a business that you're developing, then this is where we want to support you in building that kingdom business. It's a lot to this. And sometimes people share their story, share their story. You're a phenomenal speaker, but you don't have anything to offer, a program to get people into. Maybe you're a life coach, maybe you're certified, but you don't have clients. All these things, we understand. We understand the struggle. We want to help you, whether you're author, coach, whatever you're doing, to be able to impact more people. And we do that by offering you resources to get you plugged in, to connect you with support. So you can actually book a free resource connection call with our team. We'll sit down, we will talk with you, we'll learn more about what resources you're trying to get connected to, and we will plug you into your next step. So go ahead and book a free resource connection call. The link to do so is in the notes. So thank you again for hanging out with us today. Always a blessing to be with you, sister. And until next time, you stay encouraged and you keep your faith on the journey. I'll see you soon, sis.